And funny enough, I've gotten some of my best ideas from podcasts. I was very reluctant to listen to Joe Rogan. I
Yep.
love his podcast. It's such a wide range of guests that he brings on. I mean, people from every single background.
Yep.
And so even some of those podcasts give me some amazing pieces of inspiration for content to write.
My name's Ryan Atkinson, and you are on the Business Cloud. We have a conversation with Dominick Namis today, talking about his journey going from 2K followers on LinkedIn to 60K in 11 months. He shares us with his secrets to this growth and gives insights to the content that he is posting. He also shares a really fun concept to always give before you get, and how he's living by that mantra. Hint, he has a really cool ebook coming up. We then talk about his time at Meta working with their advertising teams. And then we end on one tip for anyone that wants to accelerate their career. Really fun conversation. I enjoyed having him on. And let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Dominick. I am super excited to have you on.
Thank you, Ryan. This is it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
We first met at Capital Factory at a Fiesta event in like early October, and you were telling me we just started talking about like LinkedIn and whatnot. And that's where I really want to start this podcast episode out, because in the past 11 months, you grew your LinkedIn following from 2K to almost 60K followers. First off, congratulations to you. But let's start at the beginning of this. Was this a goal that you had in mind, that you wanted to grow your LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did not want to grow my LinkedIn. Well, I should say I didn't expect to grow my LinkedIn by this much. The thought came as I was vacationing / going to a wedding in Barbados at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. I was just driving down the road in Barbados. I remember it very vividly. I was like, what is my, I don't know, I like to call it New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
But I said, what do I want to do in 2022? What do I want to do, and what do I want to stick to? And I said, I've been putting off posting on LinkedIn for years. I think I opened my LinkedIn back in school, in college in 2014, and never really got active on it. But I noticed it was blowing up. I mean, I would hop on there every couple of weeks and just see people getting 2K, 3K, 4K reactions. I was like, wow, there's something here. The organic reach is insane. Can't
Yep.
do that necessarily on Instagram or Twitter. So let me see what this LinkedIn thing is all about. And so I started at the beginning of January, post by post, 5 reactions, 4 reactions, 10 reactions. And I think mid-January, I posted something around a timely topic. I think it was inflation. It was a hot topic at the beginning of 2022. It was around, okay, it's January. Do you ask for promotion? Do you ask for raises? How do you enter the conversation with employers, knowing that inflation's at 5, 6, 7%, but your yearly increase is at 2, 3, 4% below inflation, meaning, and depending on how you look at it, you might have just gotten a pay cut. Even though
Yep.
you got you got a raise, you might have just gotten a pay cut. So how to enter that conversation with employers in terms of increasing the size of that raise, and it blew up. I got 3, 4K, 4,000 reactions, and clearly there was something there, and it was proof that, wow, people are on LinkedIn. People want to read this type of content. Let me keep going. But didn't start with the intention of just blowing it up. I just wanted to start journaling, if you will, just start putting my ideas out there, seeing what happens. And this time it stuck.
Interesting. So how many posts did you have before that first like viral post? It sounds like middle of January-ish. Was this like you posted 10 times, like the 11th one was huge, or like how many posts did you have prior to that?
I think I have the analytics and I can go back and take a look, but it was probably 12 posts
Interesting.
consecutively. And on the 13th, it just blew up. And there's a whole lot of analytics that can be analyzed in terms of, I posting before 9 a.m. or posting on a Monday versus a Sunday. I can tell you out the gate, I noticed on weekends, engagement was incredibly low, right? I mean,
Yep.
I, as a user, go on LinkedIn on Saturday and Sunday, but it's more like midday, or I'm just aimlessly scrolling through stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. If you're going out on a Friday night, Saturday night, you're not waking up at 8 a.m. the next day and scrolling LinkedIn. Maybe you're taking a peek at Instagram to see that I post any drunk videos or
Yeah.
pictures the night before. We're not really taking a peek at LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so. Do you remember like what day this was on? Because I do think the LinkedIn algorithm to me is like still like super confusing. Like I'm still getting like 5 to 10 likes like each post essentially. So do you remember like what day this was on, or like what times have you noticed LinkedIn posting is best at?
It had to have been on a Monday or Tuesday. Those are typically the best days for LinkedIn. People are coming off the Sunday scaries. They're getting into the rhythm of their new week, and they're just engaging. They're looking for content. They want to be drawn in. So content creators, which I believe are the vast minority on LinkedIn, I think 1% or less than 1% of LinkedIn's 800 million user base actually creates content and pushes it out there. So it's a tiny, tiny sliver of the overall user base. But I believe Monday or Tuesday is the best time to post and when it really takes off. And if you think about our schedules, right? Now people are perhaps returning to the office. They're not as much full remote anymore. For better or for worse, I love full-time remote, and that's a whole other topic I'm sure we'll get into, because people are very passionate about that as well. But if you think about their routine, right, you wake up probably 7 8 a.m. depending on your time zone, depending on your commute time. So earlier in the morning actually seems to be a little bit better, because you're starting your commute and you're settling into the office by about 9 a.m. So I typically post around between 8 and 9 a.m. Central. And that way you hit all the time zones. You hit Pacific when they're waking up, you hit Eastern when they're already in the office.
Interesting. So what's going into these posts? We kind of have the time, you want to post early in the mornings, Mondays and Tuesdays are the best time. But so what are you actually like putting into the post? If I go on I know it's on your LinkedIn, but if someone doesn't know it's on your LinkedIn and they go to your LinkedIn, like what are they going to find? Like, what do you enjoy writing about?
LinkedIn asks there's a feature called, I think it's like creator profile. When you hit that feature on LinkedIn, it asks you to add up to 5 hashtags. And some people just kind of fill it out and move past it. I really put a lot of intention around the hashtags I want to be known for. I think that's sort of the topics I want to be known for. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head all of them, but I know marketing was one. I've been in sort of like the marketing realm at Meta for a long time. Tech, I've been super passionate about tech forever, pretty much my entire life. I always knew, whether it was in 12th grade when I got my first iPhone and I was dabbling around with Siri and downloading apps, whatever it was, I was always kind of this techie guy. Health has been a huge one for me, as I've gone through my own personal health journey in the last 2 years. Started with COVID, transparently, and I would think a lot of folks can resonate with this, but I was at my all-time high just in terms of my own weight, very bad unhealthy eating habits, eating takeout 2-3 times a day, wasting a lot of money doing it, and getting a lot heavier doing it as well. And I got a personal trainer, and in 6 months I committed to doing daily walks, going to the gym, doing some strength training 3, 4, now 5 times a week. And ultimately I was able to lose 70 pounds and build a whole lot of more muscle mass, just get a lot more knowledgeable about macronutrients, micronutrients, how the body works, just stop sitting all day and get out and be more active. And so those are some of the big topics I talk about on my LinkedIn: health and fitness, tech, marketing. And now I'm dabbling in entrepreneurship a bit more, as I'll tell you a little bit more about my story going into entrepreneurship, now no longer being at Meta, but that is something I'm starting to talk about more and more.
Interesting. Are you finding like the topics that you do talk about, is there one that like really, like, I don't want to say blows up, but like really resonates with your followers the most?
Anything having to do with remote work, anything having to do with going against the grain, fighting the man, and going back to the office and saying, look, in a world where we're still coming off of COVID, we're still burnt out, we're still figuring out like what corporate America looks like post-COVID, quote unquote post-COVID. anything having to do with that, taking a strong stance on that typically blows up quite a bit, because you have one cohort of people that are like, I'm never going back to an office.
Yep.
I love remote work. I love being in my home office. I have all the bells and whistles and plants and decorations and all that type of stuff. And then we have the other cohort, typically employers and or folks that are a little bit older, and I fully respect them for believing in that. But they're like, look, I'm isolated. I feel lonely. I don't have a dog. I don't have kids at home. I feel like I'm in a box by myself. I want to go to the office. I want to get the coffee. I want to chat with Susie at the water fountain. And so I fully understand it. And they're pushing for back to office. And I really do believe that we'll hopefully meet somewhere in the middle, and we'll all kind of be happy, somewhat of a hybrid model. But I don't think either extreme will necessarily win out.
Yeah. What I think, like, for you, like, what I really like about your content is like you're super consistent, like when you post. And like I know like the days you're gonna post, like if I go on your feed, if I go on my feed, like I'm gonna see like all the time. So I want to say like you are very consistent. But do you like have like a set schedule of like when you sit down and like actually write this content out, or is it just like, oh, it's 1 o'clock, like I'm gonna start writing this now, or when you get inspiration?
Yeah, truthfully, I say I can't get up later than 8 a.m. every day. I mean, when I was in the summer, I was really dedicated to my fitness routine. I'm getting back to it now. I've kind of fallen off for a couple months, but I'm getting back to it. But sometimes it's writing it out the day before. Sometimes it's writing it at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to publish by 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is sort of my somewhat arbitrary, but my own deadline that I set for myself. Most days. There might be a couple days where I'm like, okay, I'll get up by 10 a.m., but 9 a.m. Central Time is typically sort of that deadline I set for myself. The one thing I will say though, coming up with ideas, coming up with content is hard. Any content creator will tell you that. The one thing I've started to do to give me some inspiration and to make it a little bit easier, just taking notes when I hear something inspirational, motivational, something that I think people would like to discuss, have sort of a conversation around, pull out my iPhone, I open a notes app and just start typing away. And funny enough, I've gotten some of my best ideas from podcasts. I was very reluctant to listen to Joe Rogan. I love his podcast. It's such a wide range of guests that he brings on. I mean, people from every single background. And so even some of those podcasts give me some amazing pieces of inspiration for content to write.
Yeah, I think that's like one thing that's like really hard for me anyways, but I'm getting a lot better at it. Is I've changed my mindset when I consume from like, oh, like I'm just going to consume this and like enjoy it. It's like, oh, I'm actually going to like listen to this and be able to create like something from the takeaways and do it myself. It sounds like that was a similar mindset that I'm following in your shoes that you now apply to like Joe Rogan and all your other podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, like, so where's like, you see a bunch of creators, people are always trying to create. Where's like one thing you think that creators go wrong though, when they are creating content, and their processes and what they're actually writing? What's one thing that you typically see people go wrong with?
I think it's sort of dependent on how you define wrong.
Yeah.
But a trend that I'm noticing, and I'm super guilty of this, is I mentioned that in the beginning, this journey started because I just wanted my LinkedIn to be my personal journal. Just put up my thoughts, had no expectation, no intention of like blowing up or going viral. And now I think people become too hung up on content performance. And again, I'm guilty of this. There's some days that I spend so much time and effort writing a post and I think it'll blow up, and it doesn't blow up, and I get down on myself. I'm like, man, the rest of the day is gonna suck. Like my LinkedIn reach was not 100K impressions. I barely have 50 reactions. Like the day sucks because my mood sucks because my LinkedIn didn't blow up. And I think that is a dangerous trap to fall into. And I'm trying to shift my mindset back toward, why did I start doing this? Just because it was fun, just because I want to build community, meet new people. I mean, you and I out of all the people that I chatted with at Fiesta over a Capital Factory, you and I were like an instant connection because
Yeah.
we both started to talk about LinkedIn and a couple creators we knew, and we had that immediate connection. And here we are now doing a podcast. So LinkedIn in some way brought us together here. And so that's a beauty of it. That's the fun of it. And just getting back to that and not just focusing on, because at the end of the day, a lot of it's vanity metrics. It's for
Yeah.
me to say to other people, I have 100K followers, I have 1 million impressions. Like, at the end of the day, it does not matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely I'm guilty of that dopamine hit too. I just started posting on like YouTube reel or YouTube shorts, excuse me, and like TikTok. And it's like once you see a video go like not viral, but viral for me is like 700 views or whatnot, 800 views. But like once you see that curve, it's like dopamine, 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 dopamine. And it's like, but if one doesn't do good, it's like, oh crap. Like, but you can't let that ruin your day because you have to
Right,
remember the day I'm doing this for fun and I want to share a story.
right, right. Exactly.
I'm curious. There's a term that I recently came across where it's called like brand jacking or news jacking, where essentially you connect like a story to a brand that people are already familiar with, like an Amazon, like Google, or like news jacking, where like right now it could be like Elon Musk first Apple store. Do you do that with any of like your own content? And like, if so, like how have you seen it work out for you personally?
Not necessarily. It's something I've given some thought to. I mean, it's no secret that if something is like the hot topic of the day, right, on mainstream media, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, and you give your take on it on your LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, people will react to it, right? Like there's this big story, the majority of people have seen it. You give your take, people typically tend to react to it. I mean, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, or I think on Wednesday, Snapchat said everybody is going back to the office. And
Yep.
my take was, and this was on brand for me because it's not like I just came on Wednesday and said that this was my belief. I've been saying this for a year now. My belief was Snapchat will not necessarily be any better by
Yeah.
driving and forcing all these employees back into an office. I mean, think about the negatives to that, right? And yes, there are some great positives. You build a stronger culture, you are able to collaborate in person. There's some good stuff in terms of being in person. But
Yeah.
think about in COVID, people moved back with mom and dad, with their families in rural America, in spaces that are not San Francisco and New York City and Austin, Texas. And those talented individuals will likely not want to move to Venice, California to work for Snapchat, but they can be a tremendous asset to that company. They're just not willing to pick up and move. And so Snapchat and other companies like it are losing out on that top talent because they say you must be in office. It's so expensive to live in California. Not everybody wants to do it.
Yeah, that's what I think the beauty of like working from home is like one, if you do have a remote workforce, like you can like the talent pool for what I would think just opens up so much more because you can be based in California, but you can also hire someone that's in like Minnesota or like Chicago or something.
Right.
So I think that is like the beauty of working from home. But I do want to say on a topic here that you brought up a little bit earlier of your entrepreneurship story. Now that the meta layoffs happened, I'm curious now, like, what's your entrepreneurship story? Like, what are you starting to get into? I know you have a big ebook coming out next week. I might have just hinted at it, but can you share us like what's going on in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working on this ebook. It's been sort of a project I've thought about for quite some time now. And now that I have a little bit more time, I say, you know what, let me just do this. Let me help folks understand what's going on in the world of LinkedIn. Give them a little bit of insight into the LinkedIn algorithm. Even though I haven't fully cracked the code, I don't think anybody outside LinkedIn has truly cracked the code. These companies keep their algorithm and sort of their secrets secret, right? And for good reason. They don't want people taking advantage of these platforms. At the same time, I want to be very clear. This is not some sort of like money grab for me. This is not some sort of get rich quick scheme.
Yeah.
I had a really good mentor tell me once, what's wrong with just giving and not expecting to get anything back? And I really, really sat down and thought about that. And I was like, you know what? He's right. And so I spent the last 11 months just giving as much information, resources, referrals to Meta as I possibly could have. And perhaps you could say something I've gotten back is this massive loyal following, but I've not asked for anything in return in the last 11 months. Now it's the first time I'm asking for $1. And I'm not trying to break the bank. I originally thought it could be $69.99. A couple folks gave me a feedback that was a little bit too steep. So we're bringing it down to $49.99. We're discounting it by $20. And I don't want, again, not a money grab. I want to see if I can do this to prove it to myself, to prove that I can put out something that people value and will pay for. And so I want to donate 10% of all revenues back to a good cause as well. Still have to think about that cause. We'll donate some of that profit to the nonprofit, as well as I have a designer helping me. We have a mutual agreement for her to get a share of the revenue. So it's not just like Dom's trying to grab all this money. I'm actually trying to give people more value than I'm taking. And I think $49.99, not too much to ask. Hopefully this will help folks blow up their LinkedIn. I believe anybody with this ebook can get over 10,000 followers at minimum on LinkedIn, and find new jobs, new connections, new opportunities.
That's awesome. So like, what's going to be in this ebook? Is it like a master class essentially of like LinkedIn creation, or like what's going to be in here?
This is my first time doing it, so I'm not saying that it'll be perfect. I'm kind of learning along the way. I've gained some inspiration from the LinkedIn guru himself, Justin Welsh. He put out a really good newsletter a couple weeks back talking about his first ebook and how he did it. But essentially what I'm doing in this one is I'm going to give you the behind the scenes look at the top 10 posts, the top 10 viral posts that I had on LinkedIn this year. And I'll tell you, my most viral got 4.2 million views, and the 10th one got about 750K views. All of them have thousands of reactions. The top one has about 32,000 reactions. I mean, I remember the first time I went mini viral, I had to take off notifications for LinkedIn. My phone pretty much froze. My iPhone just froze because the notifications just kept coming in one after the other, and the noise just kept going like crazy. I had to deactivate the notifications.
I think that's crazy. So like you literally, that was one of my questions actually. So when one of these posts does go viral, like your phone literally just blows up and it got to the point where it froze.
Yeah. I don't even have notifications on anymore. So I'm at the point where I'll open the app and I'll see like 1,000, 2,000 reactions, and I'll get that dopamine hit too, and I'll feel good about myself. I won't lie, but I can't handle the amount of notifications anymore, so it's completely deactivated.
It's interesting. Is it like kind of fun to think about like how far you've come in like such in a relative amount, like short amount of time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so scared in the beginning. I mean, I know there's so many folks out there that are scared as well. What will my employer think? What is my manager going to think? Is this going to hinder me from getting a promotion if my manager has a different view than me? And I would say, for one, try to get over that fear. Not as many people are looking at you as you think. Now, I know a lot of people are looking at me because I've been able, thankfully, to amass a massive following. At the same time, the way the algorithm works, not everybody will see your post every single time, right? And the beauty of it is too, I knew I was doing something good and putting out good content when I saw managers and leadership and directors at my company stealing my posts. I mean, I had a post talking about the benefits of working at Meta and all the PTO we have and the health insurance and the time off. I had multiple people steal my post word for word. And I know it because I was leaning over the kitchen counter, writing it and coming up with the emojis for this post word by word. And so they took it, they stole it word for word, reposted it onto their, not even like a reshare, like a copy and paste. And I had friends show it to me and they were like, I know this was your post. And I was like, yep, what can I do? I guess it was good enough to steal.
I was gonna say, do you do anything? Like, this is like Meta leadership. Like, do you do anything?
I don't know.
I feel that. Yeah. I do want to talk about your time at Meta just because who's not interested in Meta? So can you tell us like what your role was within Meta? It looks like you were working on the ads, but I want to let you give the full picture of it.
Yeah. So I started at Meta 5.5 years ago. I came in as a partner manager working with or advertising agencies. I was non-verticalized to begin with. Then I started working with agencies that specifically work in the automotive space. Did that for a couple of years. And then most recently, for the last 2 years, I worked with advertisers, direct advertisers, as opposed to marketing agencies. I will say there's pros and cons to
Yeah.
working with each group. A lot of folks will say agencies are just like the middleman. They're not
Mhm.
necessarily needed. Saw a lot of benefit and I had a lot of fun working with agencies. Some of them are a little bit more sophisticated and don't need as much hand holding, if you will. Um, Advertisers, the beauty of it is that they're oftentimes the decision makers,
Yeah.
and you can tell them, increase budgets, switch to new optimizations, switch to new products right there and then, and they'll bite and they'll do it. So I had a lot of fun working with each group. I did some crazy stuff during my time at Meta. I mean, I founded the Caribbean, the internal Caribbean group. I'm originally from Belize, down in the
That's
Caribbean. So I founded that group, and through that group, I was able to fly out to Barbados and give a presentation on how to run Meta ads, Facebook ads at the time. I went to Jamaica for a conference and I led some talks on how to do that. So I've been all over the place through working at Facebook, and I'm grateful for my time there. Obviously, anybody who's been following me will see that at the beginning of November, they let go 11,000 folks. And they kind of had to do it because the company was just growing too big, too
yeah.
fast. I was unfortunately included in that layoff, but I'm choosing to see it as a positive versus a negative. I'm grateful for my time there, grateful for my experiences, but I think this just means that there's new opportunities, new doors that I'm meant to walk through, and some good stuff will come from this.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. It kind of feels like, from an external perspective, anyways, like it's kind of like a blessing in disguise because less than a month or about a month after the layoffs happen, you're about to release an ebook and like really start on your own entrepreneurial journey. So you have to view that as a blessing in disguise in some way, right?
Yeah. And I posted about this too. I mean, the Friday of the week we got laid off.
Yeah.
Normally my Fridays would be super hectic, and I'm putting out fires before the weekend, and I'm securing budgets before the new week, and I'm doing all these things. The Friday of that week, we got laid off on Wednesday. The Friday, I went to the movies. I watched Black Panther 2 with my family. I did a walk in the morning at 8 a.m. and I did absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. It was the most magical Friday ever. You don't even want to see my calendar today. I'll tell you, I prioritize this. I love doing these types of things. So I'm really grateful to be on this podcast. But today I probably have 10 other meetings, and I'm gonna keep going through 6 p.m. tonight. So
Oh my God. I think that's like so crazy. It has to be, for me anyway, my experience over like Thanksgiving break where we had 4 or 5 days off, whatever it was, is like it was like a mental like clarity. Like I felt like way more creative in some weird sense. Is that like kind of what you experienced on like that Friday, even like after the layoffs?
1,000%, 1,000%. And it gives me more time to start refocusing back on my fitness and my
Yeah.
health and cooking more. I love cooking for the family. I took my girlfriend to Italy to propose. I proposed to her in Italy. And so we fell in love with wine all over again. We're already wine fans, but we have a new found appreciation for wine. So I'm exploring all these hobbies with my free time now that I'm not working the 9 to 5 corporate gig.
I love it. Wait, so did you just propose or when was this?
This was in September.
Okay,
So
well, congratulations. I thought this was like in the past 2 weeks. I was like, holy
no,
smokes,
no, no.
congratulations.
Yeah, this was shortly before you and I connected and we met. But that's another part. I think that was probably in my top 10. I mean, it got personal. People love to see personal posts on LinkedIn as well. I don't know if they want it to become another Instagram or Facebook. I don't want it to become another Instagram or Facebook. But people like to see what other people are up to. And if
Yeah.
that is a couple baby photos every now and then,
Yep.
proposals, make it human, not just have it be work, corporate every day of the week.
Yeah, that's what I think that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a healthier like content mix within my own LinkedIn because like admittedly the past like 3 months or so, even before then, it goes way on. But like it was all about like the business cloud, which is great to promote that, but I'm starting to think, okay, how can I actually like provide value to people's timelines where they will actually like this instead of just cold pitching the business cloud. So I'm curious, kind of going back to that wine, don't know why this came up, but if you are in like a creative like rut where it's like, oh, like I don't know what I should write about, what should I do here? How do you get out of that?
I typically go on walks or I start a
Mm,
workout, and ideas just come to me. Business ideas, writing ideas. For me, it's just my thing. Go on these walks, and sometimes it's not even with a podcast. I just unplug, take no phone, just go on
mm,
a walk in the neighborhood, and I get so much clarity. Admittedly, I haven't been as good as disciplined about doing that recently, but I think I had a streak of I think like starting probably around March or in the summer of 2022, excuse me, 2020, when the peak of COVID, I started walking and I walked for about 700 days straight. I had
no
like
way.
more than 2 years straight. And it was, I mean, some days were a half a mile, some days were a mile, some days were 6, 7, 8 miles of walking. It varied, but I tried to get outside every single day. And, I lost 70 pounds from it, but the mental clarity that brought me was probably the number one benefit.
That is so nuts. So you are a very consistent person. That's what I get from it. And it's like, would you consider that as like a contributing factor to the success on LinkedIn is just the pure consistency?
1,000%. I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, that took me. I've tried to go down fitness journeys so many times, and
Yeah.
I failed, and I broke it, and I never got back up. And I just said, look, let me commit to this. Let me at least give myself 365 days of doing this thing. And that's why when I built up that really strong habit, and again, it took decades of building that up, right? But when I did build that muscle around consistency, I applied that same methodology to LinkedIn, and I knew consistency would be a huge factor. And so consistency is not the absolute only factor you have to take into
Yeah.
consideration. People like some good content, storytelling. They don't want to necessarily be sold every day, but
Yeah.
consistency around posting pretty much every day of the week and is a huge factor in LinkedIn success. And I found that for me, consistency means every work day. I give myself a little bit of a break. I found that engagement, like I said, is not the greatest on Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
Some people take advantage of that. I mean, they have more social
Yep.
things going on. They're like, hey, you want a job, you want to connect with people, you want to have new connections, like this post, connect with this post on a Saturday or Sunday, and they have tremendous success. Not for me. I do Monday to Friday, and the weekends are just free. But that consistency is a huge key.
That's awesome. And so we have two more questions for you. We are winding down on time very quickly. These always go by way too quick. I want to talk about, we've talked a lot about like your success on LinkedIn, but even in the workplace, you had a lot of great success with Facebook. Young 20s, what is like one tip you would give someone in their young 20s to really accelerate their career?
To really accelerate their career, believe in yourself. Really
Mm,
believe in yourself. And let me expand on that. I made a post around this. I think it might have been the same Snapchat post, and I had a couple negative comments in there. And I don't know if people know this, but you can actually hit delete on some of these comments. Now, I'm not saying go and censor people or like try to curate your comments so it's all rainbows and sunshine. But if you really have some trolls and some negative energy and just some comments that bring no value to anyone, you can feel free to hit the delete button. But going back to seeing business success, accelerating your career, believe in yourself. In that post, I mentioned that earlier on in my career, I felt imposter syndrome hitting me very hard.
yep.
I did not come from a big D1 school or an Ivy League school. I have not the typical American background. I'm an immigrant. I did 1 year of high school here in the US in Austin before going into college. So I don't necessarily have a huge knowledge or understanding of like the American high school education system. And so going into Facebook, getting a job at Facebook was a dream come true. I mean, I'll be honest, it felt like I won the lottery, right? My family felt super proud. My dad could not stop posting on his Facebook that I got a job at Facebook.
That's awesome.
And my aunts, and I mean, it was everybody was super excited. But getting there was a different story. I felt the imposter syndrome settling in. Everybody around me went to Yale and Harvard, and I'm generalizing because Meta, it is true that it's a massive company of 100,000 people. So not everybody went to Ivy League schools, but to get to Meta, you had to have been the top of the top in something, right? You had to have been really good at something. And so in my cohort was a lot of 22-year-olds and 21-year-olds who, again, went to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, et cetera, and entered at Google and Apple and all these places. And I felt that imposter syndrome. Do I belong here? Do I belong here? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? And the original question was around accelerating your career, doing well earlier on. Believe in yourself, believe that you can, because I'll tell you, I now have directors and VPs and people that came from Harvard and Stanford and Yale and worked at Google coming back to me, asking for my advice, for my referrals, for my LinkedIn network. And so all it took was for me to believe in myself, stay consistent, and know that I could make things happen. And now you have these same people coming back to me. And I'll tell you, this is only the tip of the iceberg for me. I have a lot more in me and I'm ready to go. And this layoff is fuel for the fire.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You were great on this whole podcast. And if people want to continue to keep watching you, continue to follow you, see your post on LinkedIn, how can people connect with you? How can people learn more about you? Please plug all your socials, and we'll be happy to have them down below as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we'll get them down there.
The main one, we'll give it down there in a post. The main one is on LinkedIn, Dominick Namis. Can't miss me. I think it's like linkedin.com/dnamis. And so it's DNAMIS. I'm on LinkedIn. Would love to have you as a part of my network.
Perfect. Well, everyone, those links will be down below. Thank you so much for joining us, Dominick. You were awesome. I love talking about LinkedIn with people and understanding this algorithm a little better because I need to get way better at. So thank you so much for joining us. This was a great episode.
Appreciate it, Ryan.